Good afternoon, Yorkshire Classic Cars Ltd fans, and welcome, new fans and old, to another sunny day in Retford. And thank God it is sunny, because it's rained a lot recently. Certainly has here. Appreciate it has around the rest of the UK. Quick update in the old workshop. Things have changed. Things have been very busy. I'm sorry I haven't done a video for about a month. You'll see why. Stuff has changed a heck of a lot. Just absolutely run off my feet. So what I'll do is, I'll give you a quick rundown of what's in, what's happening with it, where we're all at with it all, and we'll go from there. Right, first one in, I don't know if you've seen this one before, is a Burgundy Stag, okay? That's come from one of my subscribers. Although it looks really, really nice at a glance, that's the windscreen on the roof, I hasten to add. He had a bit of trouble getting a windscreen, and it's wrapped in bubble wrap, so it's not going to damage anything. But it's just so I know it's his windscreen. There's nowhere really left on the shelves. When he brought the car to me, he's managed to secure most of the panels. You should be able to see on the rack there behind it there in bubble wrap. Those are probably predominantly all the panels we're probably going to need to purchase for the car. It does need rear wheel arches, wings, sills. It's pretty much a full body restoration. It isn't getting touched under the bonnet. It starts, runs and drives absolutely perfectly. I believe it's got a ZF conversion, this one. I can't remember if it's this one or the other one, but either way, it runs and drives perfectly. It doesn't need painting under the bonnet, so it's not going to get painted under the bonnet. The rest of the car is going to be painted just in the same colour, I believe. But again, when I get there, I'll check that. It's not a 15-minute job to get this all sorted and ready for paint. Lovely car. Mark 1, you should be able to see that from looking, but if you can't, you can see there the easiest sign is the headrests there, if you can see those. It actually looks, I'm just looking through the camera now, and it looks absolutely immaculate through here, but it isn't. Unfortunately, a lot of the inner arches, outer arches are filler. The boot lid is covered in little dents, although it is absolutely solid, which is rare for a Stag boot lid. The bonnet, like every other Stag, has no rust on it, because Stag bonnets don't rust away. The wings, the rear wheel arches are terrible, and the sills are pretty rough under there as well. So I'm going to make that a nice strong car, put it back together, get it painted, then back to the customer. I'm not in a position to start on it just yet. It's going to be the next sort of, well, this is the joke part of it, but you'll see why in a moment. But it should have been probably the next few weeks, next sort of 2 or 3 weeks, but I think it might be the next month or two now, unfortunately. But I will be on with that over Christmas. And once I start, it'll leap forward. I know what I'm doing with Stags, so there's no problem there at all. That pulls me on to Stag 2. This is a very, very late Mark II Stag here. Ironically, another viewer from YouTube, another subscriber. This owner has watched my YouTube video on the engine and cylinder head job. Unfortunately, this car suffered an overheating. It's overheated for a long time, I think. Basically, the owner went into a friend's house. I don't think he'll mind me telling you this. When he came out, the car was in the red and it was boiling, and he didn't actually know how long it had boiled for. It was actually running okay. It was running pretty well, really, to be honest. The carbs needed setting up and they were flooding a little bit, but other than that, it seemed okay. But then it started to overheat a little bit. It has an electric fan fitted and no engine-driven fan. So the electric fan wasn't working, so it hasn't warmed up. It hasn't cooled it down properly when it should have done, which was unfortunate, as you can imagine. I mean, at this point, we jumped in with, oh, you know, blooming Stags, but I'm not going to lie to you. Any car would have overheated at that stage. My Rover V8 would have absolutely chewed itself to bits at that point. Unfortunately, the Rover V8 is a lot easier to change the head gaskets on, and this one, not so much. It's a tidy car. It looks very straight. It is very straight. It's very clean and tidy. But the owner is more of a user rather than a polisher, so he likes to get out and drive it. And that's kind of the same as me, really. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but he does like to drive it, and he likes to keep it as pristine as he can, but still have the use of it, which, you know, goes a long way. Now then, so I started taking the heads off that. If you've seen my head video, you'll have seen me dismantling the heads off an engine out of a different car. This is his engine over here. Now, I don't usually take an engine out to take the heads off, so that should really tell you where the problems begin. It's been a living nightmare. I'm not going to lie to you. It's just been an absolute nightmare. I have done, over my career, probably of me owning my own business and working for Yorkshire Triumphs back in the day, I've probably done 40, 50, maybe more sets of stag heads, from engines I've stripped down to engines I've put back together again. And I've done many jobs in over here. Now then, usually to get the studs out, you try them with a screwdriver. If you're lucky, they'll come out. I've never known one come out with a screwdriver, but they can. Then you double nut them. If that doesn't work, if they're not moving, then you weld a nut on. That usually shocks them loose. If that doesn't work, then you resort to my bracket here. That's the stag head removing tool. And as you can see, it's now bent truly out of shape. This tool I inherited from Yorkshire Triumphs, and there isn't many stag heads you can't get off of that. The worst ones I did were for someone recently, and they had been glued to the block. They'd been well sealed to the block. And in which case I had to step up from my 1 ton bottle jack I'd used for the last, God only knows how many years, to this 5 ton bottle jack. And I pumped it up, left it on overnight, came in the next morning, because it moved, and I got the studs out, and, you know, Bob's your uncle. It's not that big a job usually. This one, not a Scooby's. I couldn't actually get the bolts out. The bolts usually come straight out of here. They're never a problem. These ones were, it was almost like they were glued in, which is where my concerns arose. The back ones here felt like they were torqued to about 150 foot-pounds. The front ones were torqued to about 25. They were sort of glued into the head. I'll show you one in a second. And then I tried to take the studs out, and as you can see, on this side, 3 of them snapped off, but they are snapping off level with the head. And I'm not going to lie, I've never known them all snap off level with the head. These won't move. I got 1 stud out. I did that yesterday on this head, which I hoped would just come out. I've soaked them in plus gas. I've soaked them in diesel, and this one came out. These look like new studs. If you look at them, they are, but the one that I got out looks absolutely pristine. It's in my bag because I'm going to take it home tonight. I think when they've been put in, they've used some sort of sealing product or Loctite. I've tried heat on these. I mean, I've really heated them. You know, I've heated them. I heated 3. I preheated the studs and welded to them. And as you can see, this one broke off. And they're all flush with the head. They are glued into the head. And when I say glued in, I mean, it's like they're welded to it. They are not moving. I've had the jack on there now for the best part of a week. And although you can see a gap here, that's just where I've tried to see if anything's moved with the feeler gauge, and it's just the gasket that's collapsed, which is probably where the head gasket had blown in the first place, in all honesty. They have not moved. And as you can see, the jack is still on that corner, and it hasn't moved. It just will not move. That's that. This side, it's pulled some of the threads out, the intake manifold, which I've never had happen before either. So I did inform the customer and say, unfortunately, I'm going to have to take your engine out. What I'm going to do is design and build a tool so that I can drill these studs out. I'm hoping they're not stainless steel. The one that I've taken out doesn't feel like it's stainless steel, and it certainly is magnetic. So I'm fairly sure they're you know, mild steel. I've designed a tool basically that I'm going to use for that. Beyond that, I've just no idea. I have never, ever been beaten by a stag head. I've taken heads off engines that have been buried outside in muck piles, and they've come apart. With the help of that little tool, but they've still come apart. I've never had a stag head stop me, and that one has stopped me. So I've designed this tool, which is your worst case scenario tool. It's going to involve me making a piece to hold those perfectly square, and then I'm going to drill down the center of the stud. I'm going to try and easy out. For what it's worth, I don't think it'll work. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a 11mm drill bit. They're actually 11.19, 11.27 millimeters, I think they are, the 7/16 studs. So I'm going to try and drill through with a 11mm, just to give me a 1/10 of a millimeter tolerance in case I go off a little bit. I'm going to use the big drill as a pilot. So I've ordered some extra long drill bits, which is what I'm waiting for. I'm going to drill down the center of the stud, and then I'm going to take it out with the big drill bit. Now that'll only work the tool I've designed on the studs that still have some thread left on them. But if there's 5 studs and I can take 3 out, the other 2 might just go. If they don't, I'm going to have to work out a way of clamping that down square to that. I'm going to clamp it square to the boss. So if I hold it over here, so this part is machined square to the face of the head. Well, it should be. And I'm going to make it screw onto the top of the stud and then have a guide with a small hole in it. Luckily, I've got a lathe and a milling machine, so I can make things like that. It makes the job bigger, but quite honestly, there's no other way of getting them off apart from a sledgehammer. So he doesn't want to have to buy a new engine. And I certainly don't want him to have to buy a new engine. So this is the next line of defence. I'll clean up these threads. They're only 7/16 UNC, so I can tap it. I've got loads of taps that size. So I'm going to tap it, make it screw onto the top of that stud, square, nip it down with a pair of Stilsons, and then I may mill a hex into the top. I don't know yet. And then I'm going to use that as a guide to drill the small bit down the middle, and then use that hole to guide the large bit down the middle, if that makes sense. Because obviously a drill bit follows the previous hole, especially in a thick piece of material like that. That should weaken them enough to get them off. I won't drill right to the very bottom. I'll leave about 1/2 inch nub on the bottom, and now I've got a stud extractor that will bob them little bits out. I don't think they'll be tight in there. The studs, I'll take you over here and show you the nuts and studs and bolts. This is his box of parts. The bolts that have come out, if anybody can ID what that actually is on the end of there, I'd love to know. There's some carbon on there from oil. It's like putty almost. It's weird. It's almost like tiger seal, but it isn't. It's like soot almost, but I have no idea what that is. Somebody's coated them all the way down, I think, with it. It's not Loctite. Loctite will usually pop with heat, and heat doesn't seem to bother it. You can set fire to it, and it just doesn't bother it. So, yeah, I've no idea what that is. It's sort of a product. But every bolt and stud has it on, look. And it is really strong stuff. Whatever it is, it's strong. And I can't get it out. So there you go. Last car I'll show you. I'd like you to work out what it is. If you can work out what it is, I'll give you 10 Scott Mills bonus points. It's a 1959 car. Came in to change the gearbox. As you can see, the transmission is out. It's on the floor there. And that, ladies and gents, is probably the heaviest gearbox I've ever seen in my life. It's cast iron. It's an automatic, front to back, and all this is cast iron. The bell housing is aluminium. And I reckon that weighs in excess of 75 kilograms. I don't know what that is in pounds, probably somewhere between 75 and 100 kilos. I got it on the top of the transmission jack and then couldn't move the blooming thing. I had to get it off with the crane. It's that heavy. Now, I'm pretty blooming strong. I'm not Eddie Hall, but I'm pretty blooming strong. I have tweaked me back recently and it's been giving me a bit of grief, but I can still lift and move and work. So, yeah, I have no idea what that was. But either way, that came out to put the 727 torque flight over here behind my Capri in. Excuse the mess, I'm having a bit of a clear up. And then it turned out once I'd taken it off, I nipped up and got a flex plate for it, and the torque converter is over yonder. Don't know if you can see there, but the back of the crank has sort of a top hat shape to it. Okay, so apparently, now I'm no Mopar expert. I know a tiny bit about them, but I'm not a real expert. This is a 383 big block. And apparently this is one of the early 50s or sort of mid 50s crankshafts in there. So I informed the owner, obviously, and said, look, it's no bueno, I'm afraid. That gearbox isn't going to fit on that engine. He looked into getting a crank, and somebody did say the crank would probably go in, but I know, I'm probably boring you by now, but I do know for things like small block Chevys that the early 2-piece crank doesn't fit in the later 1-piece rear oil seal sort of block. There are differences. And I know things like people say about the Rover V8 being based on a Buick engine, which is based on a Buick 300, but you can fit the cranks, but you have to machine them and regrind them and polish them and do all sorts of funny things with them. So I said to him, if we end up there, where I'm taking the front out of this, the bottom out of this, and then we find out we can't get the crank in and blah, blah, blah. So he said what he'd do is he'd find another engine. So he's going to put a later engine in it so he can actually drive it around and use it. It's a car that's going to be used. As you can see, it's clearly had a lot of restoration work done underneath. There's a few little bits on it here and there, but it is a very, very, very tidy, clean car. And it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. Looks a little bit like a 55 Chevy from certain angles. Looks a bit like the Batmobile from others. It looks like it belongs in a Marvel comic or maybe a DC comic if you don't like it. But either way, that's that job. So that job's gone turbo. That's an engine and transmission swap, which it shouldn't have been. The cylinder head's the only part of this job I thought would be a long job, which is I said, the guy who does my machining for me, he's done Triumph engines for me for a long time. And he's done for Yorkshire Triumphs, and I trust him. There are other people who can do them, but I trust him. So basically, I take those to him, and he gets on with it and says it'll be a couple of weeks. But unfortunately, he works on his own, like I do. So he has a lot of customers who come with commercial engines and things like that need a quick turnaround. And that's understood, and, he just makes no secret of it. But he does have to sort of waylay jobs like this to do that. So it can take a little while. And I did say to the owner, if it's a long time, that's why. I'm not, obviously there's no point in me sandbagging it. It's got to be done. So yeah, the engine's out for me to do the work on it. He had an invoice for it being reconditioned, but things like this are stripped here. You see that 5/8 nut there. So that was stripped, so I couldn't get a nut on the end. All the threads are stripped off here. So I couldn't keep the tension on the timing chain. So the front cover's going to have to come off anyway. But to be fair, now the engine's out, it's, in all honesty, when I do head gaskets, that's how I tend to do them anyway. So I do them with these, and then I tend to feel comfier taking that off and resetting everything just to make sure it's all right. The Rover's still here. Most of the parts have arrived for that now. If you have a boot floor section, I'll zoom in. The boot floor section over there, it's had an ingress of water and it's gone rotten. So if you have a boot floor or any sections out of the boot floor or a brand new boot floor, which would be better still, could you get in touch, please, either by my website or via my Facebook page, Yorkshire Classic Cars Ltd, obviously. We have a rear panel, a back panel, brand new, original Rover. We have 2 sills, which it needs, obviously. He's got doors. He's managed to get me a good second-hand scuttle panel, which is mint, and that one over there, that battery tray piece, which I'm going to sandblast and paint. That's probably where I'll start, in all honesty. I've done a bit in the corner there. It's managed to blow the water on it, the rainwater on it the other day, and it's got a bit of surface rust on, but I'll clean that off. It'll be fine. But yeah, so most of the panels are now here for that. So that and the Burgundy Stag are next, really. Last but not least, in case you ever watch about me Capri, some people love it, some people don't. Some people are Stag people. It's a bit low on this front corner. That's because I've left my wallet on it there. Look, it's fallen down a bit. I've managed to locate an oil cooler for it. The master reservoirs are in, and you'll notice the one at the front has fluid in. The brakes aren't finished. That's the clutch reservoir. That's all bled up and working. The windows are in, the chrome trims are on. I've had to fit window sliders, which I detest. If anybody knows a better solution than window sliders, please comment or send me a message. Which now shut rather nicely for fiberglass doors, if I'm really honest. But that's pretty much that. I've ordered a few other bits and pieces for it. I've got some mirrors. If you're watching this far, thank you so much. Do you like the mirrors? Don't you like the mirrors? I don't know. I quite like them, but they are a bit cheap and plasticky. I don't know. I have some chrome ones as well that used to be on it, but they're not as big as those, and I thought these might actually work. So anyway, that's as far as the Capri's got. It's not coming on along. So bits and pieces on that. So yeah, that's where we're up to now. If you have watched this far, thank you very, very, very much. If you haven't hit subscribe, please consider it. This isn't the end of the video. I'm going to have another little groan. I like a whine and a moan in my videos. I'm a Yorkshireman. We like a whine and a moan. I'm going to lean against the car here. Because my backside is killing me. Right, somebody said, comments. Somebody said, would I stop wandering about, strolling around my workshop because I find it off-putting? No, I will not. I'm sorry if you find it off-putting. I'm sorry. I can't please everyone. But you're the only person in a year of doing this that's mentioned it. I stroll around anyway. It's just a fidgety thing because I can't ever feel like I'm stood still. I'm not going to apologise for it. That's just what I do. It's very, very difficult to stand still and show you close details of every car, engine, gearbox, whatever I'm doing in the workshop. So no, I can't stop doing that. I'm going to keep doing it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Sorry and all that. I've got a few troll comments. Somebody said they bought a Mark III Spitfire, worst car they ever bought. Well, and why do you feel the need to tell me? I'm sorry. I didn't make them. I didn't invent them. I love a Mark III Spitfire. Oh, and I will add as well, in case you're still watching at this point, the blue-green Spitfire that I put, that I used for that video when I did the review on Mark III Spitfires and Buyer's Guide is now up for sale. If you'd like me to pass your details on to the owner, I don't know what he's asking for it. It's none of my business. But I can give you his detail, his details. It's gone to auction somewhere, I believe. And if you're interested, I'll pass that on to you as well. Obviously, there's no money in my hand. I'm just trying to help people out. It's not doesn't benefit me one iota, but he's a good guy. So, he's actually selling it. It's a nice car, actually. It's one of the nicest I've driven. I'm not saying it's the best in the country. I'm just saying it's a nice car. And I can't remember what the other comments were, but there were a few negative comments. Somebody said they had a 17-year-old Honda that was better than a Mark III GT6. Congratulations. That's brilliant. Glad you think so. I don't care.